I'm really looking forward to the conference, and I'm really excited. I hope that folks are also excited about the topic, and that they join us at the conference in August. It's going to be great. Um, you know, uh, the the idea for the research for this book and the passion that I have for this, it really started several years ago when I was as a school board member, as a school leader myself, trying to think through how we as leaders navigate different circumstances, challenges, or conflict in our schools, from the classroom to the building level to the community and school level. And I was curious, right? So I remember as a researcher, as a writer, sort of wondering what would happen if I collected the stories of all of these leaders sort of navigating sort of turbulent times in their particular buildings and communities and schools. And I did that. I wound up actually spending time researching, talking to superintendents and school leaders from Illinois to Pennsylvania, Maryland, to Texas. And I collected those stories, and I fell in love with this passion of success, right? And really motivating and lifting others, and was curious on how leaders, how they did that, right? How do you inspire? How do you motivate? How do you lead change? How do you navigate turbulent times? And how do you do that well? And so that was an essential question and a passion that I had, and really that was the thought that inspired the research for the book. And I went out and collected those stories and did an analysis, put it together in a book, and hopefully we'll present some of those findings at the conference. The idea is to sort of really provide leaders and participants with an understanding of, at the very least, six sort of big common practices that school leaders and educators had while sort of navigating change in their buildings or high conflict situations in their buildings. And so there were some common practices that I identified in how school leaders were doing that. And so I'm hoping that folks lead with those six common practices, or an understanding of those six, and maybe they reflect on how they themselves as leaders can get better at getting better in those areas, and really also grounded in the sort of emotional intelligence. How do I, as a leader, self-regulate, right? I always say, when we talk about emotional intelligence, the sort of five big dimensions that we'll share at the conference. Out of the five sort of dimensions of emotional intelligence, self-regulation often is the one that's most overlooked, but it's the most visible sort of emotional intelligent dimension as a leader, because your frustration is seen, your kindness is seen or heard, your collaboration with others is seen and heard. And so the way we sort of approach self-regulation as we navigate conflict or change in our buildings is key. And so I'll share a bit about those dimensions on emotional intelligence, and then we get into some other common practices regarding how we reflect as leaders. How do we ask the right questions as we're navigating change? Oftentimes, the wrong question as a leader actually takes us down a rabbit hole we probably don't need to be in. And so how do we sort of have that sort of self-reflective mindset that allows us to ask the right question, to institute the right plans, to monitor and ensure sort of the direction we want, and then iterate if things aren't going in those ways. And so those are some of the takeaways I'm hoping folks get and really are inspired to not only walk away with those sort of dimensions of emotional intelligence, understanding the sort of six common practices of navigating through change in our buildings. And whatever we don't get to, I'm hoping folks read in the book, The EQA, and they can find more in that literature, in that piece of literature. Yeah, I'm hoping that, one of the things I always say is there's collective wisdom in the room when we all gather together as leaders and as educators. And so I'm hoping that my session not only is just me sort of talking and sharing, but that folks that come to the session are able to also share with each other, to engage in collaboration. There's a lot of these sort of problems or pieces that our colleagues, our neighbors, our friends are also navigating, walking away not only with some cool tools and strategies, but also some new relationships as well.